Hi, Annette Lang here. Welcome to my podcast, The History of Personal Training, or at least my experience in it. This podcast will be a combination of my stories. Full disclosure, I might not remember things exactly the way that you did. Now, my stories of 30 plus years in the fitness industry and then specifically personal training. I was at the beginning of a lot of events, the firsts, so to speak, and so I hope you enjoy those stories. In addition, I'll be interviewing lots of different people whom I've met through the years, and I think that will help piece together a wonderful timeline of the development of this profession that we now call personal training. Enjoy. All right, here we go. Richard Boyd, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I just would love to have people hear your story. You know, I'll butt in when I first remember that I met you, but why'd you get into fitness, how, and what you've been doing all these years and what you want to do.
Yeah, thanks, Annette. Great to touch base again. It's, we used to see a lot of each other, and it's been less recently, and I do have a funny Annette Lang story that I want to include sort of midway between this if we can.
Okay.
Yeah, so Annette, you and I started very, very similarly in that I was a personal trainer. I was based in Australia at the time, and then I had actually moved to Canada. Thought I was falling in love with a girl, and moved to a place called Edmonton.
But wait, what year are you talking about, Richard?
So this was about 1996, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I ran about 95, 96. So I moved to Edmonton in Canada. And then at that point, I started training at a place called Club Fit, which was downtown and still there, I think. And just, was loving the training, getting into it. And then I had a client that actually, at that time, AIDS and HIV was fairly new. And there was no real protocol about how to train somebody. And so I found that pretty frustrating. And then when I started to dig, I realized there was no resources for anything like that, or really anything for trainers in general. So I had a friend of mine that was a programming guy after I moved back to Australia, and he told me, there's a way that you can put password access and then create a website. And so we did that. And then the concept there was to really then start creating content. And it really started quite embarrassingly with me writing content, Annette, and that's definitely not. You can tell by Annette's laugh. That's definitely not my strength. But I wanted to start to get people together who were experts in all different fields, and then we came up with the concept of PT on the net. And as has happened many times before, I was training clients. The clients were looking to retire. They had some money. And they loved the idea of not retiring and helping me launch this concept. And so we started that in Noosa Heads in Australia. And funnily enough, one of our really, really close friends, Eno Dwyer, another author who was with us for a long time, is still doing a lot of amazing things out there. He still owns the studio. I actually sold him the studio in 1998. Right. When we started PT on the Net, and Ian still has it now. And then we just moved to America, and then just basically started to grow it, and then we took it to the health clubs, and then it obviously grew from there, and then it just became this amazing network of. In the end, we had about 350 authors.
Okay, so I have to interrupt because that's the story where I first met you. I was working as a trainer at Equinox and part of Equinox Fitness Training Institute with Bob Asquari. And he came in, after a weekend, and he said, hey, I met this guy at a conference and he wants to start a website for education for personal trainers. And so I told him that you would write articles for him. He can't pay you. And I was like, oh, great, Bob. Once again, I get to volunteer, to do something for free. And then you walk in. I think we spent the day together just in a taxi going to different places in Manhattan. I was like, this guy is crazy. But you did it. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. I think that was probably some of the best memories. I think as we were building the website concept, I had never been to America before, so that was my chance to see the whole country. And then literally got to see, I think, almost every state. I think probably except 3 in the end. North Dakota being one, which is very, very close to your heart.
Right.
And it just kind of blossomed from there. And then we just got, to be honest, one of the people that you and I know well, and that really helped, really spike interest in the website was Paul Check. I remember I was at a conference in Australia, and I think it was the second year where we had maybe 25 members, and then Paul Check was sitting on a ball, this little ball guy, he was with his ripped abs, and he was talking about functional training, and everyone thought he was crazy, including me.
Right.
And then he became one of our first contributors of a more sort of global nature, and he was fantastic. He wrote obviously great stuff, at times incredibly controversial. I still think he's 15 years ahead of most people. Even today, he still is. I think when you look at his stuff, and then really then started to align with a bunch of world-class guys from that point on. It just got better and better, and then we had so many people like yourself and some people aligned for this. And then we held things like Meeting of the Minds, where we brought all the fitness club chains together from around the world, and we brought all the authors together, and we did like our sort of 20-minute version of TED.com, and right. I think, and when I talk to the people in the industry now, I think that's still probably one of their best memories of the whole PT on that experience was the Meeting of the Minds, because it was a true community. Like everybody was together, and everyone was there just to learn. Right. And I think that was the really good, solid days of really what Bob Asquari started at Equinox, and people of that generation where they forced the educational into the pathways of the trainers as they progressed, and it just created this fantastic culture of learning. Do you remember one of the first times you spoke at Club Industry Conference about being professional, and you started in this like nice looking, I don't know if it was a suit, but it was nice clothes, and you started talking about how personal trainers don't take them seriously, or they don't present themselves as professionals. And as you did the presentation, you started taking off your clothes, and so by the end, towards the end of your session, you were standing there in boxer shorts and a white like undershirt or something, like a tank top undershirt. And I remember these people walking in, like, in the middle of the session going, what is going on here? This guy is stripping in front of us. Yeah. I think what I remember about that the most is that you were laid into that, and I was probably half naked by the time you came in, and I think you thought to yourself, what the hell is going on? Yeah, I was trying to say that, hey, we think that we're our opinion of ourselves is that we're very professional, but the way that we sometimes carry ourselves, the way that we act is very unprofessional, and that was kind of my way of, I guess, it's my Australian way of making a point, I guess. How did you get people to sign on with PT on the Net? Like, was it just like your perseverance and personality, or you worked really hard at it, right? Yeah, I think what it was early on was the kind of relationship with my business partners, where they said, listen, we're going to fund this business, Richard. We're going to give you half of it, but you have to work your butt off, and you have to be willing to travel around the world, and you have to be willing to to really try and spread this passion of this education. And when you're 20 something years old, I mean, that's probably one of the coolest things you can ever hear. Hey, we want you to travel around the world, and we're going to fund it. Right. And so how we started was literally I would start just south of San Diego, right near the Mexican border, and I would pull out a telephone book, and I would look up every single health club chain in that area, and I would go and knock on every single door and ask if I could do a presentation to the trainers. No kidding. Yeah, and we did that, and then I would do that all the way until I got to Canada, and then I'd come back and then do it all the way back again, and then I'd start back in San Diego again, and do it up to Mexico and back. So I did that for about 2 years, literally visited almost every single club chain in California, or basically Southern California, all the way up to Canada. Wow. And then that way we had a lot of individuals joining, but then what we found a slightly smarter way was we would actually go and talk to health clubs, and then they would represent 3,000 or 4,000 trainers, like 24-hour fitness. And ironically enough, they were the first ones to actually give me a break. I was nagging their HR girl there, just like to give me a chance to like do something. And she said, you know what? She said, we're not going to pay for this, but she said, I'll let you, and I'll give you permission to go into every one of the clubs. Wow. So I'm like, fantastic. So then she allowed me to go in a little bit more arranged, and then I could speak to 30 or 40 trainers at once. And that was a chance for us just to then start to sign people up, and that's what really started. And then we started doing a lot of deals with health club chains, and then we started to go around the world. And part of, I think, what really helped us the most was we had 2 live educators that have become obviously very well known now, but it was Ian O'Dwyer and Michelle Dowcourt. Both were our 2 live guys that were traveling around the world doing all these workshops. And so the 3 of us, the 3 amigos, and I still remember, I think one of the famous quotes that we joke about a lot, and it is, when you traveled with myself and Ian O'Dwyer around Australia to do workshops, and I think about the 3rd day in, and that's like, you guys are 2 sophomore idiots. because we were two Australians trying to be funny, and Annette was like, she'd had enough of that after about 3 days. So I think that was pretty funny. But that's really, yeah, it was just a lot of visiting, a lot of clubs, and doing lots and lots of travel.
Yeah. And so then when did you go from PT on the Net to PTA Global?
Yeah, so we sold PT on the Net. We sold it to FitPro, I think about 2007, I believe. We'd had PT on the Net for about 9 years, and then we sold it. So it was just under that decade, and then we really felt like, because traveling with all the clubs, I became very good friends with all the club owners and with all the fitness directors and the company directors, and what they were telling us was, all these certifications were great, but a lot of them had, or basically every single one had a different philosophy.
Right.
And what they were saying is a lot of times they weren't aligned with what they were trying to teach their trainers at the club level, and so they found that there was a true conflict, and so we just did a lot of homework and said, what is it that everybody needs? If we did a certification, I didn't really want to do it, but they really said, listen, if you do this, we will, we'll buy this product and we'll use it, and so we got 23 authors together for that. Again, really in the same collaborative approach as PT on the Net, to be honest. And then we just, took all these different mindsets and listened to what the clubs needed, and then formulated a very different look at how we think trainers should be certified. So the approach was looking at how can we make sure that they're successful in the first 90 days. That was the whole focus, was, forget about long-term for now. How do we get them to survive 90 days in a club environment? Because once you get through 90, then you normally stay for like 5 to 10 years.
That's
if you don't get through the 90, that's when people tend to fall out. So,
right, cool. And so then after that, you went to 24-Hour Fitness, or was there something?
Yeah, so we did. Actually, another friend of ours, Bobby Capuscio, and I did a bunch of consulting. Had my first and then my second child. So I didn't. So after PTA Global, took a bit of a break, spent a lot more time at home, and then just consulted. And then actually, Bobby and I did a really fun gig with Hilton Worldwide, which was a wellness gig, and that was actually that's one idea that I think to this day I wish someone would have taken it up. So basically, Hilton wanted to get into wellness.
Okay.
And wellness was a very trendy word, and Marriott was thinking about doing it, and they were doing some stuff with Mark Verstegen, so they kind of wanted to try to compete, and so we just said, listen, if you think of a hotel chain, you've almost got the perfect wellness environment. Like, you can almost affect someone from about 8 different approaches. So we said, listen, if someone travels, I discovered there's this thing called aerotoxic syndrome. So when you actually travel a lot, because it's negative ions and because the air filters, the actual air quality is pretty bad, and your blood flow slows down. And what we thought about was, when someone comes to a hotel, if they've been off a flight, what could you do for the next 24 hours to get them ready for whether it was to go on a business meeting or to get their mindset ready or just to make them feel better from jet lag. So we looked at the menu for food and for drink. We looked at the workout, how specific could you create the workout. We looked at their massage and all that spa component. And then we looked at even the actual room experience. Could they work out in the room by looking at stuff on the TV? And then even things down to like drinking things like herbal tea and chamomile, which helps you sleep. Right. And then like sound noise for the. So anyway, so we kind of did a lot of fun stuff with that. Hilton realized that wellness is a much bigger concept than I think they were prepared to really grasp, because there were moving parts to that. But that was really fun. And then I started a thing called the Fitness Panel, and that's where I don't know if you remember that, but that was really just. There's so many people with clever ideas that don't have a way to get them into the industry, and obviously I had the industry contacts. Yes. And so I just created a panel where people could bring the ideas to me. I would preview them, put them up onto the website, and then put them on. At that time, it was Facebook and Twitter, and then basically just get feedback from people, and then look at those different ideas, and then help them get into the health club. So one of them was, part of it was the second sort of era of the Viper product. Went through the Fitness Panel. If you look at Cortex with Anthony Carey, if you look at Sandbells with Hyperwear, so there's a lot of really neat stuff which actually came through. Oh, that's terrific. Through the Fitness Panel. So that was really fun, getting to see things before anybody else, and then to just help connect them, because that's the hardest part is developing that network. Right. And then Mark Smith came knocking on the door. 24 Hour Fitness was sold. And then Mark wanted to create a new innovative team to come in, and that was almost 3 years ago now. So we moved from Boulder, moved to Northern California where the headquarters are, and then I ran what was classed as the fitness and innovation for the business for that time. So we had about 4,500 trainers all over America, which was great. And so did some really fun stuff, and then got to work with very talented people, LaShawn Dale, Bobby Cappuccio, Jason Stella, Phil Timmons. So it was a really fun time actually.
That's terrific. And now what's next, Richard?
So I was just telling Annette, so I gave her a little bit of a preview. So I can't reveal all that side of it, but we're launching a new business. The launch date's going to be July 22nd. It's going to be a very fun approach to health and fitness, and it's really looking at it. It's really unlike just going after PT on the Net. PT Global was just looking at the fitness professional.
Right.
This one's actually approaching everyone from the coaches to the professionals to the consumers, and it's just going to be a really fun side. And normally, as you know, and I like to be behind the scenes. I'm quite uncomfortable in front of the camera and on the stage. I'm going to be more involved on this one because we've got some really funny things we want to do. And
terrific.
So it's going to involve a lot of the same old faces that you and I know well, and just a lot of these very clever people, and kind of the Tim Ferriss approach to networking with these guys and getting him out to the consumers.
Who's Tim Ferriss for the audience?
Yeah, so Tim Ferriss is a guy that originally wrote the 4-Hour Work Week, which became Charles Poliquin's, I think, most favorite book. And then he wrote the 4-Hour Body.
Right.
And then his most recent one is, I think it's I've got it here somewhere. I think it's Titan, Tools of Titans. I think it is. And what he really did was he took a lot of the authors that we sort of had in the PT on the Net days, mixed it with a lot of the new current people in all different areas, whether it's Wim Hof, the guy that exposes himself to below zero temperatures to get an amazing effect on his body, and people like the guys from Acro Yoga. And so he kind of took all these people and then took them all to the consumer. So a really interesting way of doing it. And his blog is incredible. Like, he has some of the most amazing people on it.
Great. Well, listen, so we'll hear more about that when you start. And I want to leave you with the same two questions that I've been asking everybody concerning the profession of personal training or fitness in general. What does a new fitness professional, if you had, one great pearl of wisdom for a new fitness professional and the average person on the street who knows nothing about the fitness professional, what would you say to them about us or who we are?
So that's both the questions there, right?
Two questions, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the first one, I think I'm going to take a quote from what you did at Meeting the Minds, which to this day has always affected me, and Bobby and I still think it's probably the best presentation we have ever seen to this day, and I mean that honestly, was you told a story about meeting a client where they need to be met. And PTA Global, that was our saying, was meet the client where they need to be met. So if you're a bodybuilder, don't make them bodybuild just because you like bodybuilding. If that's not what the goal is, then you should obviously not be addressing that. And you gave the quote about, you said you trained a very old Jewish lady who you would meet once a week, and she would come out and you'd walk around the block with her and you'd let her smoke. And I remember the whole crowd at Meeting the Minds was just stunned. They're like, how could you do that, Annette? Like, you're a personal, like, how? And no one understood the grasp of that. And then when you continued the story, you said, but what did she eventually do? Like, this lady never moved. Right. She wasn't active. And then eventually she gave up smoking. And it wasn't because you said, hey, if you train with me, you have to stop smoking. You met her where she needs to be met. And I think if there's a skill set that a trainer needs that I think has been your success and the success of the Bobby Cappuccios and everyone else in that space, I think it's meeting people where they need to be met. And as a trainer, if you can figure out where they're at and have empathy for where they're at, I think you become a brilliant trainer. Right. I don't care how good your tools are in the toolbox. If you don't understand where they're at and where they're truly trying to get to, then you're going to miss the point, and you're not going to get them as a client. They're not going to stay very long. So I think that is a really important piece of the puzzle, and that's why I think we had some pretty amazing people present at Meeting the Minds that year, and when you presented it, and I think for us the takeaway was so strong with yours because it resonated with all of us because we were all trainers.
Well, thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, it was, and I think that's always been your specialty, is understanding the client exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And then the second part is what's the most misunderstood. I think, if what is it that we do that these people need to know? To me, I always describe it this way. I don't think, to me, personal training is it's just a nuance, and it's the nuance of sets, reps, and tempo. So to me, it's what training really is all I want to do is show you how to use the whole entire facility, if you're in a facility, let's say, and make sure that they understand that if their goal is weight loss, they can lose weight doing any piece of equipment, anywhere in the facility, in or out, no matter where they are. It all comes down to what's the sets, reps, and tempo. So what is that? And once you understand that, then you produce the right hormone response, you produce the right muscle response, you produce the right blood response. And I think it's the little nuance of that's truly what training is to me. It's not someone who's really someone that just makes you accountable, someone that you coach, someone that helps you with your mindset. I think that's all very overplayed. I think what trainers do is they take someone's goal and they take these little nuances and teach people how to understand sets, reps, and tempos really well. And when you understand that, you can use any piece of equipment to get any outcome.
Right.
And that's where I think that's where it's a bit misunderstood. People don't understand that. They think it's an expensive luxury. I think it's really just showing someone how to understand the nuance of movement. Right. And then that's to me is what a great trainer is. Right. And then if the person is not moving well, they can make those little tweaks to say, hey, probably this rep range is too high, too low. Your frequency, your duration, like what are those components of that? And it gets down to me, a lot of it is getting back to basic periodization.
Right. Oh, that's awesome, Richard. All right, well, I'm going to let you go, okay? And hopefully we can talk again some other time soon.
We'll be talking again because you'll be working with us from July 22nd. You just don't know it yet.
Oh, okay, great. All right, Richard Boyd, thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye.